Hello and welcome back to It's Raining Time Somewhere. My name is Carolina and I'm your host. I want to start with a little bit of disclaimer just like I did on the other episodes. I am not English, I am Portuguese. So in case I say something wrong, which is gonna happen a lot, I am so sorry. And for today's episode, it's actually one of the episodes that I was the most excited to make. And to be honest, I didn't make an episode in June because I was currently reading the final book of this published series till the moment, but it was Avatar. It's the one of the most iconic series of the last decade. Is A Quartet Thorns and Roses, written by Sarah J. Maas. And today we are going to be diving into this Prythian world. And yes, this episode is going to be full of spoilers because I cannot speak about Avatar without giving spoilers because I need to talk about it. I didn't have no one to talk about it, so I'm going to speak about it right now. Because there's a lot of things that I want to give my opinion and I want to talk about it, that I should refer to it. So basically in this episode, I'm going to be dividing it into parts like I did in my other episodes. And on one section, when I'm going to be talking one book at a time, while I'm speaking about the book, I'm going to give my review on it while I'm trying to explain the history. So in case it gets a little bit confusing, I want to give like this disclaimer in advance. So first thing first, I want to say what drew me to Avatar. Just like on Caraval, it's like I'm not usually influenced by TikTok. I don't think that I was influenced by TikTok. I was more curious about why people were recommending this to people who wanted to start reading fantasy. So I was like, everyone is recommending this book to anyone who wants to start into romantasy or dark romantasy. You guys get it. So I want to know why. So I bought the first book and then I actually ended up reading it on my Kobo because I found out so hard to read Avatar, the first book. I'm going to be honest. It was so difficult for me that I had to download the Portuguese version just to read only the first chapter, because if I don't understand the first chapter, I'm not going to understand the rest of the book, and the first chapter is essential. So I thought that the way it was written, it was so difficult for people who is non-English, don't have English as their native language. So I found out really hard to read. And I think that for me, in the first book was what made me not liking the first book as much, but I'm going to talk about that later. But what drew me also into this book is basically more, I want to know why people are always recommending this book. So that's why I wanted to read this book. And the spoilers that I'm going to give during this episode is basically my reviews and the history. I'm going to give spoilers about the ending, so in case you haven't read Avatar, I'm so sorry, this is probably not the episode for you and you want to be spoilers, I'm sorry. But in case you don't care about spoilers and want to go ahead and listen to this podcast, go ahead, continue, and then give your opinion if you think about these things just like I did. But yeah, I just want to give this disclaimer because I'm going to give my spoilers on the characters, on the emotional, on the relationships and the plot twists that were on the books, and also on many other things like the magic system and things like that. Like I did on Caraval, I'm going to do it on Avatar 2, but basically what is Avatar? Of course, this is an episode for anyone who has read Avatar beforehand, but I also want to, in case you never read Avatar, you are listening to this podcast just because you want to, you also don't care about the spoilers, I want to explain what is Avatar. But Avatar is basically a Beauty and the Beast retelling story, but in this case the girl doesn't know how to read. I'm going ahead with the spoilers, but the story is talks a lot about war, power, trauma, healing, and love. And it's set in a fae world, which is called Prythian. And it follows, in the first 4 books, it follows the story of the fairy Asheron. She's a mortal girl, then she becomes high fae somehow. But yeah, she basically crosses its boundary and everything changes. But the basic structure of the books and the world is basically Prythian is divided into 7 courts. We have the day, night, and dawn court, which are the top ones of Prythian. And then we have the spring, summer, autumn, and winter court. There are also mortal lands, but they are divided by a wall that is separating them from these fae courts. There's a lot of politics, wars, and curses and ancient creatures around Prythian, like I don't know, like a Soriel or the Athor and the Bone Carver and some other gods that were created on that world. And this series blends a lot with romantasy and survival and find family and heavy emotional development. I think that I cover up a little bit what ACOTAR is. So let's get going into character development. Like I said, this story is based on Beauty and the Beast. It seems so. And our character doesn't know how to read. Because we have Fairy Asheron as our main character on the first 4 books. She's the youngest of her family. She has 2 older sisters, Elaine and Nesta. And her family was wealthy. Because then they were poor. That's why she doesn't know how to read. And her father was called the Prince of Merchants. I still don't get it. I know why he was called this, but for me the name is just, it seems like a joke. I'm going to be honest. And her mother, we cannot go without talking about her mother, because her mother set a trauma to all of her sisters, to every sister. And her mother was a very cold woman. She only cared about her daughters. And so then her mother died with a disease. I don't know the name. I don't remember. When Fairy was only 8, and she made Fairy make a promise of that she needed to care about her family. So when Fairy was 14, but before her father did something and then lost all of their money. So when Fairy was 14, they were poor. She started hunting for food because none of their family care about if they had food or not, because Fairy would do it. So yeah. Her journey basically talks a little bit about desperation to power, and then she also navigates through these complex romances and trauma and self-worth, and she's also an artist. So we see a lot of her growing to being an artist and not wanting to paint, and then also wanting to paint. See a lot of this emotional, how she's coping with the situation is how she managed to paint. I don't think it's making sense, but it's like she paints when she's healing. She only, I don't know if this makes sense, but she's a painter basically. Then we have Nesta Asheron. She's the oldest sister, and I'm going to already spoil it out. I hate Nesta. I know that some people like Nesta, but I don't know, I have like a conflict with Nesta personality. I know that she grown and she's not like this anymore, but I just can't like Nesta. So I'm giving this spoiler ahead, just so you know when I'm going to speak about Nesta book. But she's the older sister. She's more fierce, cold, and angry, and also traumatized by their mother. She was also mortal, but then she was made by the cauldron and turned into high fae. And she also represents the complex female emotion and then healing. And then we have the middle sister, which is Elaine Asheron. She's the quiet Asheron sister. She was mortal, but also made, like her older sister Nesta, into high fae. And then she's more soft-spoken, she's more sweet, and she also loves her garden. We cannot think about Nesta without thinking about her garden because she's always planting stuff and planting plants. So yeah, I think that the best word that describes Nessa is garden. Then we have Tamlin. He is the High Lord of the Spring Court. He's a very protective, controlling, and very toxic man. We don't like Tamlin, so I'm going to be speaking about Tamlin. He's basically a blonde guy with beautiful eyes. At first sight, he's a perfect guy, but then he's toxic. It's that. Then we have Rysn. Rysn is our god. He is the High Lord of the Night Court. He is also the most powerful High Lord in history. At first, he seems arrogant and careless and cold, but then when you start knowing Rysn, you get it that he's very sweet and he does everything he can for the people he likes, for his family, or for his people. And turns out that his roommate is fairy. How? We didn't know. Like, the most powerful guy has to have a mate like fairy. But that's sweet, actually. But basically, he hides his power, his softness, beneath like his arrogance, because he has to show that he's the most powerful guy. Then we have the Night Court Illyrian generals. We have Cassian and Azrael. Cassian is a very loyal and golden retriever guy. Because he's a very funny guy. He always making jokes. I actually like the personality of Cassian. I think for me he's one of my top guys. I like Cassian, but I don't like Nesta, so I think you guys are getting it. Then we have Azrael. He's a shadow swinger. He's very quiet and brooding. He's also very sweet, I have to be honest. And he also has deep emotional scars. Both Cassian and Azrael have very deep emotional scars. And they are warriors. And they are very guided by deep loyalty. Then we have the Amran and Mor, which is also from the court and family of Rysn. Amran, she's the second in command of the Night Court, and was an ancient creature in a high fae body. So when she gets out of this form of high fae body, she is this creature which is terrifying. But being in a high fae body, that keeps her away and she looks like a woman. But one thing that I found weird about Amran, and I don't remember if they explained this on the books. If they did, I don't remember, but she was always drinking blood when she was like on her fae body, trying not to be a god. I remember that. But basically, she keeps the Night Court from chaos. And then we have Mor. Morrigan, also known. It's her true name. Mor is her name. She is the third in command. She's also a relative cousin to Rysn, very distant family. She's more confident and radiant, but she also she's being burned by a secret that you guys are going to see next. She represents that she wants to be free, and she also loves her fun family, and she's also rich between power and empathy, and I hate her father. Then we have Lucian Van Serre. He is the Tamlin's best friend, I think. I think he's still Tamlin's best friend because he's like a dog. Even when he got angry with Tamlin and he ran away from Spring Court, he was always there for Tamlin. So I don't think that he never got away with it. But he's a very sarcastic and emotional bruised. I used to love Lucian, but after what he did, and not giving a damn about Fairy's feelings, I stopped liking Lucian. But he's divided by two courts, like I think 3 courts actually, because he doesn't want to be belong to Night Court, but he's always there because of Elaine. But he's divided by Spring Court, Autumn Court, because he's based on Autumn Court, and then on Day Court. Also a spoiler. Oh, it's 4. It's 4 courts. Day Court and Night Court, because Elaine is in Day Court. Night Court, Day Court, it's because we know why. Autumn Court is because he's from Autumn Court, and Spring Court because it's where Tamlin is, and he accepted. He joined Tamlin. And then we have Aerys Van Serre, which is Lucian's brother. We can see by their surname. He's Lucian's older brother. He's more cruel, calculating, and emotional and readable. He also has a lot of hints of redemption lie beneath the fire, but we never know his true intentions. So I'm gonna be honest, I always like Aerys, even though I think that he has his mean personality because of his father. I think that he hides a lot. I think that he's... how I'm going to say this? But I think that he is like Raisin. I think that he seems like he's dumb and cruel and calculating, but deep down, he's a very soft guy. And I think we start seeing that on the last book, because it's like on Fourth Wing when people hate Dane. I love Dane. But yeah, and then we have the... I'm now going to be talking about the High Lords of Prythian in a general way, so in case you guys seem like it's getting confused. But basically on the Spring Court, we have Tamlin, that we already discussed, and we don't like Tamlin. So let's get going. Then we have Raisin, which is the powerful High Lord of Prythian. And then we have on the Dawn Court, Thiessen. And then on Winter Court, we have Kalias. On Day Court, we have Hellion. And then on Autumn Court, which is the father of Lucian and Aerys, is Baron. He is one of the oldest. And I think that's all. I was going to say the King of Ebern, but I think that's necessary. So we have a lot of characters. And I think it started getting a little bit confused, but now I'm going to speak about the books, and I think that is going to everything is going to be on the right way, and everything, it's going to be like a puzzle. Everything's going to be right now. Not talking about the books, it's where I'm going to give all of the spoilers that you guys want to hear. Of course, everyone wants to hear spoilers. But it's just because I cannot speak about the books without giving spoilers. So I'm going also give another sorry. But in these 4 books, I'm also going to be giving my rating of the books while talking about the book. So we have the first book, which is the most known. It's A Court of Thorns and Roses, which the big elephant in the room, which I rated with 2.5 stars. Okay, beforehand, I'm going to give a little bit a summary of the story. But basically, A Court of Thorns and Roses, we have where, like I said, Fairy, she's a main character, and she is hunting. And on the first chapter, we see that she's hunting for food, and then she sees this wolf, and then she kills this wolf. And then this wolf is someone, very important someone. But then we discovered that this is like a curse or something like that, but I'm going to be there. But then she kills this wolf, then become a wolf into her family cabin. The wolf take her away. She goes to Spring Court. She meets Tamlin. This will take her away from her family. It's Tamlin. Because there's like a curse in Spring Court because they are always wearing masks. And basically Tamlin was always giving away his employers to become a wolf because there's a curse that if someone kill a wolf, that means that person is going to be his true love and is going to cure that curse that Spring Court has with the masks. It starts not making sense, but it's starting here. I'm gonna be honest. Okay. Then we have this witch fairy falls in love with Tamlin. There's a love story. She becomes friend with Lucian. Then she has to get back to human court, but wait, Tamlin put her family wealthy again, and they have their money back. They have food. And Nessa discovers that, like, no, you didn't went to our destined cousin. You were in Spring Court. And then she has to go back, and then she goes to Under the Mountain. And she fights, and then we have an introduction of Ryzen, and then she dies, and then she becomes on hi-fi. This is a very simple resume of the story summary. But yeah, I'm going to start with saying what did I didn't like about the story. First things first, just like I was saying on the beginning of this podcast, is I didn't get the first chapter. I had to reread the first chapter at least 5 times to get it. I think, I'm going to be honest, I think that if we know that there's a lot of people which are non-English readers around the world, why would writers write something with such difficult English? Because we are, I think that in general, people tend to abandon a book based on their first chapter. And in the first chapter, it's how we interpret, it's how we review the book. If the first chapter doesn't catch us, it's not going to catch the rest of the book. It's where we end up DNF a book. And I'm going to be honest, I was almost DNF Akhtar when I was still on the 8% of the book. And I hated this book so much because only the 20% of the book, when it was ending, during the 80% of the book, it was non-action. It was a boring story, a boring romance story, like a basic romance story. And only on the last 20% of the book, the action started, and I hated it so much. So we have this Beauty and the Beast retelling story, which is basically how he steals her away from her family. They fell in love. He's a monster. She has to break this curse to get away. It's so basic. I hated the story so much, but I knew that the second book was better because it's one of my best reviews though. But I hated so much the first book, and thank God I wanted to give it a try on the other ones because I almost didn't give it a try. But how I'm gonna say this, but basically Tamlin is a piece of shit. I have to say it. I am not sorry. He's a very toxic man. He only cares about himself, and then I think that he is so obsessed that it's not love. It's what he was feeling through Fairy. It wasn't love, and I think that Fairy didn't love Tamlin too. I think it's just like, oh my god, he saved me. He gave me food. He gave me a bed to sleep. Dear Fairy, that isn't love. That is basic human needs. I know that he saved you, but the fact that he took you away from his family because he needed to break this curse, it isn't love. And just because someone that it was going to say it's your true love, I don't think that you forget your true love so quick like you did to Ryzen. It's just my opinion. But yeah, and then when we get into the action on the last 30% of the book, it's when we are under the mountain. And when she is under the mountain, we start seeing more Ryzen, and we start seeing that Ryzen is not as bad as we thought he was. And I still didn't like Ryzen, but I was catching me on because sometimes when I'm reading a book, I have the tendency to search it on TikTok, and then appears me some spoilers that I already know that she had a history with Ryzen. So at the moment, till before that, I thought that she was going to end up with Tamlin, and Tamlin was going to have a huge development on his character, and his personality was going to change, but it never changed, and her story was actually with Ryzen and not with Tamlin. So yeah, and then she breaks the curse of Tamlin. She really loves Tamlin, that she wants to marry him. But yeah, on the ending, she dies, and then she is reborn as an Ife, and it's like that. And this is the first book. I gave it 2.5 stars because it's a very basic book that didn't caught my attention, my interest during the book because it was so boring. It was a basic story. On the next book, we have A Court of Mist and Fury, which I rated it with 4 stars. But basically on this book, we start seeing it that it catches on, I think 2 or 3 months after they got away under the mountain. And she joins again with Tamlin. She's again with Tamlin. They are in love. And they are almost getting married. But she doesn't get an opinion during her wedding. And when I'm gonna I have to be a little honest in this episode, but basically when I saw that action in the first book on the final, that she was getting this self-growth, her personality changes, she's a warrior, she's a curse breaker, I thought that the second book was like a continuation of this self-empowerment that she has, and then we go back to Spring Court. She's getting married, and we also in love again with Helen. I almost was like, no, I can't deal with this again. And then she's marrying Tamlin. And I was like, no, this is not going to happen. This is on the same structure as the other one. This is going to be so boring. But that's when everything changes. Because in the first book, we completely forget about the fact that she made a deal with Ryson. So she has this deal with him, which she has to go at least 1 week per month to his court. I don't know how many times, but basically when she was getting married, I hate Fairy for this. If she didn't want to marry Tamlin, she could at least say no to him. If he was so in love, if she wasn't prepared to marry him, she could at least say no. But when she was walking on the aisle, she was overthinking, like, no, I can't marry him. No, please someone save me. Please someone save me. And because she made this promise, this deal with Ryson, he can hear her pleading someone to help her. And so none of where Ryson appears and took her away, like saying, yeah, I'm going to make on a deal right now. She's going with me for 1 week. And she goes to Night Court. And basically while she's on Night Court, remember that I said that it's like Beauty and the Beast, but she doesn't know how to read. Basically the fact that she doesn't know how to read almost cost her life during Under the Mountain, because she couldn't read. Oh my god, I completely forgot about this. But during the mountain she has like this challenge where she has to say 1, 2, or 3, pull the letter, and it was like a riddle. And she was like 2, because it's like me and Tamlin 1 and 2, and she almost pull that thing, and Ryson made her pull 3 because it was the logic. She's so dumb sometimes. But back to book 2. And now in the book 2, we actually see more about her healing and how toxic Tamlin actually is. Because since Ryson is taking away for 1 week, we see Tamlin that he wants to... Oh, I almost forgot about the part that I almost forgot. But we get it. We are going together. Tamlin is more focused on trying to break this agreement with them to not making her go to Night Court, because he hates Ryson and he doesn't want Fairy to go there, because he doesn't want Fairy to get away. And so whenever she's in Spring Court, Tamlin doesn't let Fairy leave the house. She's always locked in the house and starts getting a lot of depression. And because Under the Mountain, that was such a traumatic experience, Fairy vomits every day. She throws up every day. And that was seriously disgusting to read, because she was constantly throwing up. And Tamlin wouldn't get up, wouldn't do anything while she was throwing up. And that was seriously disgusting. But yeah, so when she was in night court, Raisin would take care of her, and when the first time he heard her throwing up, I remember, I don't think it was the first time, but I think when she was in Villaris, he went to her bathroom and plunk her head up so it doesn't get on her face. So I think that's when we see Raisin starting to get our hearts. But yeah, basically on the second movie, we see a lot of healing her trauma, her depression, her PTSD because of Under the Mountain. She starts seeing a lot of more of her growth and dealing with this thing in Tamlin. And we also start seeing a lot about the development of Raisin and Fairy's relationship. And then we actually discover about Valaris, which is a secret that Raisin tried to keep while he was under the mountain. Oh, because Raisin was captured by Amaranthra, I think that's her name. And he then had to stay 50 years under the mountain. And he was like, I'm not going to say this, but he was like, he couldn't live there, basically, to protect his people and to protect Valaris, because it was a secret of Night Court. And she, then one day, I think it's getting confusing, I'm so sorry, but Fairy basically gets a very traumatic experience. She starts having a huge anxiety, a panic attack, and because she couldn't leave the house, and then Raisin couldn't be in Night Court because he would get captured, so more enters Spring Court and take away Fairy, and they took her to Valaris. I think that's what it was. And then Valaris is revealed. She loves Valaris, and then she doesn't want to get back to Spring. She doesn't to have more anything to deal with Tamlin, so she starts hanging out with Raisin's family. She likes them. She loves them. Then she ends up being with them. And then on the final of the book, we discovered that Raisin is actually Fairy's mate. And I think that was why I gave 4 stars to the book. Because I love when Raisin went to the cabin where Fairy painted all of that cabin. Like, that threw me off. The cabin wasn't hers, and then she was so bad that she painted all of the cabin. The Indian didn't care, but that would put me mad because the cabin wasn't yours and you painted all of my cabin. Like, yeah, sure, go ahead. But yeah, I think that part where Raisin appears after she finds out that he is her mate, and he gets a lot of vulnerable, and he explains all of the story, what happened and everything that happened and why he made his decisions. It's when I start seeing Raisin. That made me feel a lot, and I love the book. I think that's my favorite part of the book, and when he gets vulnerable and he explains, and basically on this mating bond, for the fact that a woman, just for a woman to accept the mating bond, she has to give food to Raisin. So basically, she was like, I'm going to make soup, and you are going to explain to me your decisions and the story and everything, and how did you know that we were mates and you didn't tell me. And then, if I want to, I'm going to give you this soup. And he is playing everything. And it was so heart-touching, and I think that made me love Raisin and love Fairy and Raisin bond. I think that made all the story completely better. But then we also see that in the story, we see that they are preparing for war because of King of Ibern. I didn't get it that much, but I think it was because of Amarantha, because I think that it actually didn't care about Amarantha. I don't remember why it was a war. I think all of the words that I explained in the book, it was really stupid. I think that every decision that they would do, it's a war. And also in the last book, we need to save this because it's going to have a war. And for me, every book that has a war and finish, and after 2 weeks, oh, war. I don't think that there's a need to put a war in every book. I don't think that is an answer to everything, to every problem. It doesn't need to have a war. It could be political conflicts, could be anything, but it doesn't have to result into more death. And I think there's also other things why I didn't give any 5-star to any of these books, because there's no need for wars. But yeah, on this book we start seeing that they are preparing for a war, and then we go to the third book. I completely forgot about this aspect on the Court of Wings and a Court of Mist and Fury on the second book. It's because on the books finish with Fairy going to Ybern, and she tries to destroy the cauldron. But they couldn't destroy the cauldron. But then somehow her two sisters, which they are at the moment mortal, they are in there because they were stole away by someone we love, Tamlin. And Tamlin he's joined with King of Ybern like he did with Amarantha. He is a very lovely person, only because he wants to get back with Fairy. But Fairy doesn't want with her because she is married to Rhysand. She has a mating bond. But yeah, basically Tamlin wants to King of Ybern to destroy her mating bond with Rhysand because he only wants to have Rhysand, and wants to, because he thinks that Rhysand has a control over Fairy, but that he doesn't have a mind control over Fairy. And so he pretends that he broke the bond between her, and it's like, oh my god, break the bond. And Faye's like, oh my god, you're so right. Who is Rhysand? Rhysand is a piece of shit. And I'm like, Rhysand, I love you, Tamlin. Alright, next. Then we have the two sisters. They are made by the cauldron and then turn into Fae. They are mortal, now they're Fae. Then Lucian is like to Elaine, oh my god, you are my mate, in front of everyone. Why not saying to everyone, even in front of King of Ybern, that your mate is Elaine? You could do that in secret, in a private place, but you prefer doing it in public, in front of everyone. Why not, Lucian? Why not? And that's when I start hating Lucian. But I'm going to give this into head of space when I'm going to talk about the 6th book of Ektar. But he could do that in private. He could talk to Elaine afterwards. Yeah, I know they're in a situation that is complicated, but he could keep it like Rhysand did. Rhysand knew that Fairy was in love with Tamlin, so he doesn't want to make it that awkward. He didn't want Fairy to pretend that she needed to be with him. She wanted Fairy to be free. But Lucian was like, oh my god, you're my mate. Thank god, Lucian. Thank god, you are a piece of shit. But yeah, and then we start seeing that Fairy is pretending that that King of Ybern broke her curse, her mating bond, but we actually doesn't know that. So the 3rd book ends with people Rhysand and her fond family returning to Valaris, and they're like, how could you, Rhysand, how could you do that to Fairy, and something like that. And then Rhysand drops the bomb saying, oh yeah, we married yesterday, and she's High Lady of the Night Court. And then Amron goes like, you don't expect me to be here and do nothing while our High Lady is out there in Spring Court with that piece of shit of Tamlin. Yeah, and they did actually nothing. And then on the 3rd book, we also start, if you guys want to know where, on Spring Court. We're getting back to Spring Court. But in this time, she's not sleeping with Tamlin on his bed. She has a separate room, and I think that's in front of Lucian's room. And she tries to get away and finds out more things why Tamlin is working with King of Ibern, and Tamlin also has a lot of people of Ibern getting into his house. So she wants to get information on Ibern moves and about the war and things like that. I think that this part of the book is really very well written, and I think that I really got it. I think that's why I really like this book in specific. So I think that it makes a total sense. But then because there's a wall in the dividing the mortal lands, and then the King of Ibern wants to destroy the wall. How I'm going to explain this. One day they went into a wall. Tamlin went with them, and then Fairy kills 2 of the Ibern people, and Lucian doesn't have any other option than run away with her. It's not because he is loyal to her, it's because she's going to take her to Elaine. And we start seeing that Lucian, he's a very egocentric person. He only thinks about himself. And so they have to go through Autumn Court, and in Autumn Court they start getting their Lucian brothers try to, I'm going to say this. Lucian brothers start chasing him and Fairy, and then they want to torture him, like, where you are going and things like that. And when they are in Winter Court, Fairy starts showing her. Oh, I can't believe I'm forgetting the parts. When Fairy was turned into Hi-Fi, she received all of the powers of the court, and she has to hide that she has all of these powers, or people from the courts want to get them back. So when they were in Winter Court and they were chasing her, she was like, no, Lucian, get on my back. I'm going to show them. And she starts throwing fire. And Ares, he's like, oh my god, no, she can't have that. And things like that. Yeah, because they didn't know, only the person that knew that she would have all the power who was rising. And then Cash and Israel appear, and she goes back to Valaris. And then I have this weird feeling when Lucian is in Valaris with them, because he wants to talk to Elaine, but Elaine doesn't want to talk to him because he made her put in a cauldron and she's uncomfortable. And yeah, I actually really understand Elaine in this situation, because it was a very untrustworthy situation, and she made Nesta and Elaine like really mad. And so yeah, and I think that in this book the main point is actually they are preparing for the war, and then we see a lot of Nesta's and Elaine's powers, and we see that Elaine, she's actually a very quiet person because she's trying to cope with her powers, but Nesta, she's more willing until the final of the book. And Elaine, we actually discovered that, I think that's an actually name for Elaine's powers, but she's going to she sees the future, like she knows when things are going to happen. I think it's a seer, something like that. And Nesta, she took a lot of power from Cauldron, and we discovered that she is the death impersonating a person. But yeah, and then we have this preparation for the whole thing, and then we go to the final war. And then we discover that their father actually went retrieve people, and he gave it away and he has 3 boats naming her 3 daughters. I think that this doesn't make any sense, but we know, whatever. And then I think that the main things for this book is actually when Nesta, she is trying to kill King of Ibern because he made her, and when she was entering the cauldron, she actually pointed at him saying, I'm going to kill you, like promising to him that she was going to kill him. And so she had to be the one to kill him because she felt the need of killing him. And then when she was trying to kill him, their father somehow appears in there and saying, no, you can do that to my daughter. And then he cuts his neck off. And that's when Nesta starts having a lot of PTSD because, I mean, I just find this in the final book, but the fact that he broke his father's neck made something on her, and then she transforms into this very wild person. And in this part, we also start seeing her relationship with Cassian, and then she does something to King of Ibern, and then Elaine like goes back and stabs him, I think, and then they both kill King of Ibern. And then on the last part of the book, it's when Fairy tries to destroy the cauldron, but she doesn't have that much power anymore. So Rhysand tries to give her a little bit of power, but he ends up getting killed. But then she was like crying and trying to make the other High Lords saying, please save him. And then the final Lord was Timeline, like, why the fuck do I want to revive your lover, the one that you changed for me, that you love instead of me? And it's like, yeah, Fairy, I want you to be happy, and give a little bit of his power. But on this time, she was like, yeah, you don't have any of our powers, right? And he was like, no, I think that I still have all of my night powers. And then in here, they make a bond that if they want to die, they're going to die all together. And they don't tell anyone that I have this bond. And I think that this is the third book. I completely forgot about saying my rating, and my rating on this book was 4 stars, because I think that on this book, even though I said that there's a need for words, I think that this word was actually well written. I just didn't get the pace, because I think that for me the problem of words in books is because sometimes they happen so quick. It seems like they are 3 days of work, but I think that this was actually well written, and it actually took months and to the actual word starts. And I think that this word was actually well written. Now going into A Court and Frost and Starlight. This book is smaller than the other ones. It's like a cozy novella of winter and Christmassy, where we see the afterwards of the war, and we start seeing the introduction of Nesta's story. And in here, we start seeing that Nesta, she's far away from her family. She doesn't want to be with them, and then we discover that it's a trauma. She doesn't go near fires too, and we see a lot of Nesta isolation, and we also see Fairy and Race trying to give a step forward in their relationship, which is, I think it sounds lovely. And we also see Fairy, she is also trying to give presents for them for the first time. And we also see that they are preparing for Fairy's birthday, because her birthday is on, I don't remember the name of it. How am I going to say this? Solstice. I'm not saying this, but I think it's on the 21 of December. I think it's that, because at least in Portugal, the solstice is 21 of November. But then we see that Fairy, she's trying to give presents to them, and then she discovers this place where all the artists are, and then she finds this place where she wants to, and then it's abandoned. It's a place abandoned, and then she goes, and then someone, how am I gonna say this? Someone is like there, and she's like, oh yeah, this is the artist street, and then if you want to find something, you can go ahead and do it. The shop is free. And one day she went there, and she couldn't go into that place where that people had suggested her. So there was this place that was abandoned, and she went in there, and she started painting in there. She did a lot of things, and then I think that somehow they discovered that she was in there, and it's like, yeah, the family decided to sell this place, and I think that they were actually selling the place to Fairy, and I think then she created that story. So in there we start seeing her development, and then we actually see when she was like trying to get presents and things like that. We see a lot of how people are coping after the war, and they meet like a woman that she says that she lost her husband on war, and they even couldn't get a child, and even if they had a child, that was the thing that would remind her of him. And then saw something actually light in the head of Fairy, and then one day they were in a cabin, and she was like to Reese, I'm sorry if I didn't get you a present in a solstice. I actually want to say if you want to like have a child or something like that. And Rice was like really happy. And that's when they start having a baby, because I think that in the world of Prythian and Akhtar, I think it's really hard to have babies has a high face, so they have to start earlier. But yeah, and this is the main story of Nesta and Reese in this story. And then we have go back to Nesta. So Nesta, she is coping really bad because of the war. She actually got PTSD, and she's really traumatized because of the war. She can be near the fires, and her family is very worried about her, but they don't want to push her. And I think that she also had arguing with Emran, and now they don't speak anymore. So they are trying to invite Nesta into Solstice, but she can't be with them. And yeah. So Cassian is the one that tries to speak with her, but it's a little bit bad. It ends up with him throwing her Christmas present into the lake. And then we discover in the final book what was the present. And I'm going to be honest, I know that Cassian was really mad at Nesta, but I don't think that was a need to throw her present into the lake, even though he knew how long it took him to arrange that present. And I think that there's a need for that. So that's where we see the Nesta story about her isolating. And I can forget that I can't believe that I completely forgot about this topic, but Ryson's present to Fairy was he bought her a lake house where he said to Fairy, yeah, you can do everything you want to this house. And I think that in this cozy novella, we see a lot of them giving presents, and the normal presents of winter, and how this is an habit to them. And I think that's a very pretty cozy novella. I don't know if I said how my rating in this, but I give a 4 stars in this book, because it's so small, but it's so heartwarming story. It's a very uncommon story to all of the others, because we don't see them preoccupied with the war, we don't see them preoccupied with politics, we don't see them preoccupied with anything. It's just a family cozy book where they are only preoccupied with the others, with a raging thing, like a very normal, heartwarming story with a family. I think I really enjoy this book because I really like cozy fantasy, and I think that this book's a very heartwarming story. And now for the last book, at least to the moment, we have A Court of Silvers and Flames, which I rated with 3.5 stars. And starting with this book, I want to say that this is the reason why we didn't have a podcast episode on June. Because on the other episodes, I've said that at least on the month, I've been reading 3 to 4 books per month. And on June, I didn't read any book at all because since 20th of May, I was reading A Curtain of Silver Flames. Remember that I am reading these books on my Kobo because it's easier for me to carry around a Kobo instead of a book. So I didn't know this how big it was, a book, until a book went out, until I went to a bookstore and I was like, yeah, I want to buy this book. I was talking to my boyfriend. I was like, yeah, I want to buy this book. And then I saw how huge the book is. And I was like, oh my God, how many pages is this? Because on my Kobo, the pages aren't correct. So it appears to me to have a lot of pages that doesn't match reality. So in reality, the book has at least like 70, 100 or 800 pages. So that's why the book cost me so much to read, and I didn't read any book at all. And this is the reason why I didn't post any episode in June, because I was so excited to make this episode that I was like, the third episode is going to be me talking about Avatar because I need to speak about it. But yeah, on the fourth book of Avatar, it's a little bit different of the others. On the first 4 books, we actually see the book written in the first place. It's the main point of fairy, except on the fourth book, which is the Court of Frost and Starlight, we see many point of views of the people, but still the main character is fairy. But in the 5th book, we don't have that anymore. We only have a third person proof. We actually go forth and back to Nesta's point of view and Cassian's point of view, because this book, it's about Nesta's story and her healing and through this trauma that she got to win with war. And remember that I don't like Nesta. I just don't go, our personalities don't match. And if they did that, just it sometimes it happens. It's okay. But I didn't like Nesta's because I think that, like, I think it's going to sound really mean of me, but like she was suffering just like the other people were suffering. I think that if she wanted help, I think that she knew that her family would want to help her. I think that she only isolated herself because she thought that people wouldn't understand her because she went into the cauldron. But I think that she completely forgot that Elaine was in the same situation. She wasn't alone. She could really talk to Elaine, but she also isolated herself from Elaine. And I think that for me was an excuse because Elaine didn't isolate her from anyone. I know that there's a coping mechanism of different from anyone, and I'm so happy that in a final she found her true friends, and that's something that I really loved about her book, that she found her own family. She didn't need to have a family of the fairies. I think that's a completely valid point, that she didn't want to have the fun family of fairies. She wanted to, because she didn't get them, she didn't want them. And that's completely okay. But I think that she didn't need to isolate herself from her own sisters. Even though she doesn't want to be friends with fairy sisters, she doesn't need to. But I don't think that she needs to isolate herself from her own true blood sisters. And I think for me, that's not a very valid point. She still, even though she wanted to live alone, she could still invite Elaine, and they could still talk, and she could vent with her, and she didn't need to have those. And I think for me, that's why I hate a little bit of Nesta and her personality in the beginning of the book, and that's why it took me so long to read, because I was not really and I was not really into the book because of this way. But it's really understandable why she did it and how her character is made. And I think that's a very well written character, since she gave us this rage, and we hate so much this character. I think that's a very well written character. So basically on this book, we start seeing her, it's almost some months after A Court in Starlight and Starlight. And then we see that she's always partying, she always getting drunk, and Fairy and Ryzen are getting mad because she's spending a lot of their money and they don't want it. So they make her like, you are going to train, you're going to live at a wine house, and you're going to train every day. In the evening, you're going to work at the library, and we start seeing that. But then when she gets into the house, she trains with Keshen, and that's when we start seeing her relationship developing. And I think that this book is really pretty at some point, because she finds her, like I said, she finds her family. And I think that for me, the prettiest thing of this book is her relationship with the house, because the house sees through Nesta, sees that she's suffering and she needs someone. So the house is there for her and it's not making her go alone. And then we also see Gwen and Emran, like trying to be their friend, and they are their friends and they are there for her. Like she found her friends, she found her family, and I think that's for me is the prettiest part. And Emran, Gwen and Nesta want to get back into the Valkyrie training, and I think that the fact that they try to build something, it's really pretty. But on this last book, I think that also has like something from the first book of Akhtar. Is like the whole plot, it's a very basic, like it's her trying to heal through a trauma, a training, and I get it. We have to see this to get into action, but the action only started in the final pages of the book. Is when I decided to read the old book that was like, yeah, I need to know what is going to happen next. But even though I think on the final parts of the book, I think that it was so fast, it happened so quick. Like we were seeing all of this. I think that the story could be divided into two books. It didn't need to have only one book, because I think that the whole part of that queen that they were trying to fight, they were trying to avoid another war. That's why my in the beginning I was saying there's no need to have wars, because we had one, and we see that a lot of people is traumatized about a war. We don't need to have another war. So they are trying to avoid this war. But I think that the part where that queen showed up, it happened so quick. Like, they just kill her, she's just killer, and yeah, it just goes with it. And I think that it happened so fast. We see a lot of these training scenes, we see a lot of Nesta development through this book, until that action just happens so quick. I think it could be divided into two books. With no problem, so we could see that part a little more slow, and we also could see like her trials in the final of the book be a little bit more explained, more detailed. I think for me the best part was on the trials, because we see a lot of they are the three in three different parts of that trials, but they still can fight, and they show how powerful they are, and they can survive together. I think that's really pretty and a really good concept. But yeah, I think that for me the only part that I didn't like this book is because it was so slow paced in the beginning. It didn't catch my attention, and the action only started in the final book. And for me, I think that's the only part that I didn't like that much. But Star's totally okay with it. And also the book was written in third person. I wanted to understand more about what they were thinking. I think if we were in the other books, we were always listening to people talking in first person. I think that this book would also be better if it was written in first person and not in third person. And I think I would love to see like Keshen point of view and Nesta point of view in first person rather than in third person, and to actually think about what they were thinking at the moment. So yeah, I think that A Coercive of Flames for me wasn't the greatest book. I think it would be better if it was split into two books and not in only one book, because I loved seeing her training and Gwen and Emran training into Valkyrie, that I think that the last part was so quick and didn't actually have time. Like the part where Fairy had the baby, I think it was so fast paced that we actually had like the feeling like, oh my god, they're a family. I love to see like Nesta has a hunty now. She taking care of her of Ferry's baby. I think I would love to see that more. And now I think that we have to wait for the next book to go around. But I think for me, this book was 3.5 stars, and I'm sorry. And this is actually the main reason. After after going through all of these books, now I'm going to give an overall review about what book did I enjoy the most, what were my favorite ships, scenes, things like this. So I'm going to start by saying what book was my favorite. I think that my favorite book was actually the second book. I think it's most because of that, like I said, the emotional scene between Ferry and Rysand mating bond, where he gets so vulnerable, and he explains also why he has that tattoos on his knees, and he kneels to her. I think that for me is chef kiss, and for me that book hit the hardest. I just didn't like going forth and back to her going to the Spring Court. I didn't like that fact on the other books, but for me my favorite book was the second, even though it wasn't like a life-changing book story like Caraval. For me it was like one of those books that I've read and I enjoyed it, and for me it has a lot of controversial things that I needed to say and I needed to speak my opinion about him. That's why I am here. But I think that in all of the 5 books, I think for me, the one that hit the hardest was second book. And favorite ships. There's a lot of ships in this book, but I am a basic girl. I'm going to say Ferry and Rysand. Not because of Ferry, but because of Rysand. Because Rysand is such a sweet pie. He is so, I don't know, he's really cute. He doesn't want no one to be bad. If he sees someone is mad at him or sad, he tries to do everything he can to be happy. And so I think that he with Ferry is such a cute pie. But I think that for me, even though I didn't like the final book, for me I think that the second really cute, it's Kalia's, but it's not Kalia's too. I think that's my third favorite relationship, but I think that my second favorite relationship is Nesta and Caitian, because I think that their story actually had a development. They didn't actually start thinking about dating, or they were like friends. She doesn't want to be with him, and it was okay. It was slow. It didn't happen at the moment. It didn't happen really quick like it did with Ferry and Tamlin, that they thought they were already a couple. And I think that's a very good ship, and I like seeing those type of relationships through books. But my main favorite ship, which I'm basic, is Rysand and Ferry. And scenes that broke me and healed me. I think that one scene that broke me, to be honest, and that I thought that he was actually going to die, was when Rysand died. And after that, when he was like with his family, and he was like having like these things that he thought that it wasn't real, I think that really broke me, because he was thinking, for example, I have sleep paralysis. So whenever I wake up from my sleep paralysis, and my sleep paralysis I have like inside my head, and I have to make me wake up. And when I wake up, I still think that I'm in a dream. So I start picking my skin, just so I know that it's real. And I completely felt that scene when he was like seeing their friends talking, and he thought that it wasn't real. So I completely felt that scene, because it was really sad. Okay that he's alive, but it cost him something. It cost him his mind. And a character you didn't like at first, but grew up to love. Okay, how I'm gonna say this? I think that at first sight, I didn't like Hamren. And because she was so like forward, she was a very direct person, like, you go girl, damn girl. But I think that she is a very, like, you grew up on her. And even though she like gave her body, gave her she gave her away just so the war could like end, and I think that it made me completely love her. Like, she did everything she could to save her people and to save Ryzen to save Prythian, and that touched me. And my any unpopular opinions. For me, I think that it's probably on the last book. People say that Nessie is one of the powerful women. I think that she is. I'm gonna be honest, but I think that she is more powerful when she is with Gwen and Emran. And I think because she had to give away her powers, so I don't think that she is still the most powerful, but I think that she is more powerful with Gwen and Emran because they know how to make the right decision. I don't think that she alone is powerful. I think she is powerful with her friends. But basically, I think that on the next books, and we are going to see that more. But now I'm going to talk a little bit about the sixth book that I think... How I'm going to say this? I think that a lot of people want the next book to be talk about Israel and Elaine, but I think this is also a very controversial opinion, but I think that I would love to see the development of... And I already know that it's going to be a love triangle, but I would love to see Elaine with Lucian and not because I think that Israel should be with Gwen. I think that the author was already hinting us that they are going to be together, I think, but I love to see Israel with Gwen and Elaine with Lucian. I think that the star also gave us this like hint of Elaine hating Lucian, and so it's going to be like a very enemies to lovers with Elaine and Lucian, and I think that Israel is going to be with Gwen. And for me, that's my opinion on the next book, and my unpopular opinion too. And I also have to say that diving into this series also made me curious about her other stories based in this world, that is the Crescent City and the True of Glass. But right now, at the moment, I am reading the book of the Lahaj, the Other Witch, which is a cozy fantasy. So at the moment, I'm not still reading because I still need to think about a lot of this roller coaster, which was Akhtar. So I don't think that I'm going to read them at the moment because I have a lot of other books I want to read. Since I didn't read any other book in June, I still think that I'm a little bit... I'm gonna say this, late on my schedule of reading about books I want to read this year. So I'm not going to read them yet because I think they're going to be a little bit of slow books. So I'm not going to read them yet. But since I'm reading The Other Witch, and I'm completely loving this story. And I think that I'm also going to give an episode where I'm going to talk about the House Witch books and the Burning Witch and now the Heather Witch books, because I'm loving this series. I love the writer Lahaj. She has this thing that she makes me read the books and doesn't want to put the book down, and I love it. But I think that I'm going to give then in the future probably a trial on these other books of Sarah J. Maas, but I don't think that at the moment I'm not going to give it. And now for finishing up this episode, from Spring's deception to Night's embrace, the journey through Akhtar has been raw, magical, and utterly unforgettable. Thank you so much for listening till here. Thank you so much for joining me in this world of wings, thorns, and healing. And remember, it's always reading time somewhere. Bye!